Welcome back to the ChrissyB Show, everyone, your TV programme for all things related to mental health and well-being. Well, now we're going to be welcoming back on a lovely guest that we had on the show a while ago, and that's Kenny Mammarella-D'Cruz, and he's going to be telling us what he's been up to with regards to International Men's Day and what he's been doing since he last appeared on the show. Welcome back to the show, Kenny.
Thank you. It's great to be here, and that's that's a huge statistic.
It is, isn't it? It's very worrying.
Yeah. I'm 53 now. 53.
Wow.
And it's a huge issue with the people I work with, especially with the men I work with, is irrespective of how many people they're surrounded by or how cool and funky life seems to be, there's a loneliness, there's a not being met, there's a where do I tell the truth and who can hear me, and you know, and for a lot of people it started from a very young age. I'd say for me it certainly started at a very young age.
Yeah. You went through quite a lot, didn't you? I mean, and you did tell your story last time, but we have a bit more time to go into it in more depth this time.
Right.
And as I said, for the benefit of our newer viewers that didn't see you before, we'd like to know all about you, what happened, what led to your mental health issues, and how you came through. Can you go through that for us?
I'll try for the nutshell, and you can pick me up on the interesting bits. So I was a nice Catholic boy. I was born in Uganda, and my family are from Goa. My parents were born in Africa. So my grandparents went from Goa to Uganda, and we had a very old-fashioned Portuguese upbringing, so Catholicism and all of that. And we had the most wonderful life in Africa. And then trouble came with Idi Amin, and my grandparents went to Goa, which was then part of India, to find that property had gone, there is nowhere for us, Goa doesn't exist anymore. And then we got on the death list. So we had a phone call one night saying, we're going to come and kill you tonight. Before that, we were followed, our phones were tapped, there was a lot of gunfire. There was a lot of shenanigans going on.
How old were you at that time?
I was 8.
8 years old?
Yeah.
Wow.
And
how was it affecting you at that age?
I was a very, very aware 8, and I think my awareness, when my grandparents left for Goa, it was heartbreaking for us as a family, because they were the parents. They took care of everyone and everything. And my grandmother trained the cooks to cook for us, so we were quite helpless. And I remember my mother, my aunt, even my father, there was a huge depression. So we were all abandoned by the parents. And as an 8-year-old, I realised very quickly that the only place for me, especially with the depression and the desperation that was going on, was to step up and be an adult, almost be a replacement parent for my mother so she can cope, not be a problem, because there are big problems going on. Who needs a needy kid when our lives are at stake?
It's amazing that you were so mature at that age to even think about all these things, Kenny, because
I'm not sure
you had to grow up fast, didn't you?
I'm not sure if I sat down and thought it through or whether it just happened. I've got no idea. But I feel that when the chips are down, then it's all hands on deck, or at least that's how it was for me. And I was 8, I had a 5-year-old brother who I absolutely loved, and kind of felt like, okay, I need to take care of him, I need to take care of everything. And children do that. I think a lot of children, if, say, their parents split or something goes wrong or what, it's like, what did I do to make this happen? And I don't know if I blamed myself, but I was certainly on duty to somehow make things right. And also, I would say that I was quite a mummy's boy. I was, from a very, very young age, special to my mother, my godmother, my grandmother, which on one hand, you know, people say the golden boy is the elevated special one. On the other hand, it comes at a huge cost.
Yes,
and
pressure.
To an extent, it's the cost of my life, my spirit, the responsibility for the emotions of the women, so everything's okay and they're safe. So as a mummy's boy, again, it's suddenly I'm older and I need to take care. So that was already going on. So things got hairy, things got very nasty. and we needed to suddenly go into hiding. And I remember staying, after we got the phone call, the people that worked with us and my father and uncle went around the front and the back of the house for some reason to find the people that wanted to kill us, or, it was just an instinct maybe. So let's check the place out. And then we left that night. We stayed with my aunt and uncle. They had high security where they lived. And I remember being in bed and hearing footsteps go around the house and the torches being shone on us. And I never knew if it was the people who wanted to kill us or check that we were alive that were shining the torches.
Horrible.
Yeah. But again, it was just, I guess in a strange way, it was our normality. It was what was happening, and we didn't stop to think this is horrible. It's like,
you just got on with it and just...
Exactly.
So what actually happened that night then? What, in the end?
We stayed away. I saw my home one more time before leaving.
Yeah.
And I remember I was a very good boy. And I remember I had a minor tantrum because it wasn't safe to be home. And I wanted my teddy bear. His name's Dougal. I still have him.
You do not.
And
do you?
Yeah, I do actually.
Should have brought him on.
And I can't believe my wife took one look at him and I introduced Dougal to Angela, and she said, "But it's a cat." Like, you shattered my childhood with one comment like that. Yes, it is a cat, but that's not the point. So, minor tantrum, I got my teddy bear.
Okay.
And that was the end of my home. No more church, no more school, no more anything. We were just in this bubble, and there was a lot going on. I remember one day in particular, all hell broke loose. It's written about, my mother's written a book since we last met, so it's being edited, and she wrote about this incident. I remember the day very clearly, where if you weren't carrying a certain branch or you didn't have it in your car, then you'd probably be shot.
Wow.
In those days, if there were 2 or more people standing and talking in the street, then you'd probably be taken away and beaten, because it's conspiracy against the government. If you looked at anyone being beaten or anything nasty going on, then because you witnessed it, you're in trouble. So people would just disappear and things would happen. My father couldn't bear, he was working in the, he was the head of the parcel department for the Uganda Post Office. So he knew things that were going on. He got to know people that were on the death list. He did a lot of good for a lot of people. And people were only allowed to take private possessions out of the country. So if the soldiers, who were all drugged up and high on power as well, saw that people were taking more than they should have, maybe they're going to sell it, or maybe they're being greedy, or whatever it is, they'd take them in the back room and they'd beat them to a pulp. And my father couldn't cope with this, so he did things to try and calm things, to stop the violence. He got people out of a place where people disappear and they're never seen again. So it wasn't obvious to him, but I guess in hindsight, obviously we'd get on the death list. So we got on the death list. People did come around that night for us more than once, and we were lucky to get away alive.
Wow. Kenny, how did all this affect your mental health? Later on, growing up a teenager and then into adulthood as well?
I guess it was post-traumatic stress disorder. So we left my father in Africa, and he was smuggled out on execution day. I ended up with obsessive compulsive disorder, body dysmorphia, body dysmorphic disorder, Tourette's, trichomania, where pulling hair and picking. I'd poke myself with a compass and things like that. I guess it was relieving tension. It was trying to be in control. And I wasn't in control when we were in Africa. I certainly wasn't in control when we were in refugee camps, and we didn't speak any of the languages that were being spoken, and we were quite different. So I couldn't control and provide and protect. So I guess it all went inside.
Yeah.
And I didn't realise until I was much older that I kind of, with all the internalisation, that there was a low-level depression. So my father came to the UK 9 months later, and he helped to run 3 refugee camps in Italy, and actually even organised a hunger strike because food and apparently tobacco was being withheld. And he just thought, well, wait a minute. So he got everyone to do a hunger strike so they had enough. When he came to the UK, he helped to run a refugee camp here, and he heard about a small town in Wales, away from the cities, full of nice Catholic, Welsh, Irish, Italian people, and we were kind of used to that. And that was our new home, and we were so accepted and incredibly well treated. And we were oddities. A lot of people had never seen people of colour before. So there was that going on. And again, not wanting to be a problem to the parents and to normalise things. And strangely, because I was being useful, I remember that was the first time I considered suicide as a child, thinking if they had one less mouth to feed, it might be easier.
Gosh. Kenny, we're going to go to a quick break, but you are going to stay on to tell us about what happened afterwards and actually what you're doing today to help men especially open up about what they've been through, because you did consider suicide. I know there are many others that, you know, these thoughts do pass through their minds every single day, and they don't know what to do with those feelings, they don't know what to do with those negative thoughts. And sometimes it's just, or always, actually, it's always about reaching out and getting the right kind of help. But it's that kind of getting over that fear of speaking about it in the first place. But you're going to tell us how you did it and how you're helping other people to do that. And also, guys, after the break, we're going to be speaking to our resident nutritionist, Severin Menem, on some foods that help to lift our moods when we're feeling lonely. And she also answers your nutritional questions, including this one. Is gluten really that bad for you? There's so many arguments that it's good for you, bad for you, and frankly, I just don't know what to believe. Find out the answer after this break. Hi, I'm ChrissyB, and my show is all about improving your mental health and being happy. Join me every Monday, Wednesday and Friday at 10 p.m. on my channel Sky 203. Visit ChrissyBShow.tv for more information and subscribe to our YouTube channel, ChrissyB Show. You can also follow us on Twitter and Instagram at ChrissyB Show and on our Facebook page, The ChrissyB Show. Welcome back to the ChrissyB Show, everyone. So before the break, I was talking to Kenny Mammarella-D'Cruz about his life growing up, the trauma that he went through. And Kenny, you actually finished on the part where you said you were considering suicide because it was one less mouth to feed for your parents. And, you know, you thought the world would be a better place without you, especially for your family.
I certainly thought they'd have an easier time without me. And it was, you know, the fantasies of a child is, well, I'm taking stuff, I'm a problem or the problem, would it be easier? And it passed because I was useful and we all needed to survive, and they didn't need that on top. But the thing about suicide is I've worked a lot with suicide, I've worked a lot with mental health, I've worked with people who have been through similar things that I've been through. And I know that what I needed was to be met, to learn to exist, and to be able to articulate things, to talk them out of me so they could pass. Without passing, I was holding onto them, pretending they weren't there, bricking on top of my emotions, bricking on top of my past, and kind of like trying to move forward while I've got this huge shadow that I'm dragging around. And it's the shadow that needs to be talked about. So to cut a long story short, I came back to the UK after travelling for 5 years, and I guess I was trying to run away from my shadow and having adventures, and I didn't realise I was running away. I came back to find most of my male friends were really into their power or their partying or their professions, or they were chasing money or whatever it was. Drugs, alcohol, love, sex, it was just like the fixes. And while I lived in Sydney, I started running groups, mixed groups, and talking and listening. So I got about a dozen blokes in my lounge and basically said, I don't know what a men's group is because I've never been to one, but I'm starting one now.
Okay.
And the reason I'm starting one is I need to be met at depth. I don't need this surface stuff. That's all fine as well, but I need to be met at depth. Now, that was 16 years ago. And 2-3 men who were there 16 years ago still come to groups. But now it's out of my lounge. I run 8 groups a month. I've started training people to run their own groups to take into their own communities.
Yeah.
And I've got this together, which is basically, you can download this from my website, mensgroups.co.uk, and quite simply, ground rules, check-in round, here's how to listen and talk and run your own groups and communicate about it. And, you know, there's this whole thing about man up. What is man up? For me, man up is man up and talk about it, or laugh about it, or cry about it, but whatever happens, just let it be an old story rather than carrying that story around, and let all that pain pass. My wife said to me, you can't heal what you won't feel. And for me, talking about things, it's like, well, of course I'm going to feel them. It might take a few times and I might need to get into the depth of it. But we talk about things and we can sit with each other and listen to things rather than try and upstage or fix or whatever it is, or say suppress it and have another drink. It's just hanging out and talking and being there, and it's not all
and being
sad
given
and
the
bad.
permission to do that. And I'm glad you said actually what man up means for you, because sometimes when we hear man up, it's all about like, oh, just get over it and get on with your life and stop worrying about silly things. But that's not, you can't do that. When you've been through some kind of trauma, when you are depressed and you're going through something, you can't just snap out of it, or else you would, because no one wants to feel like rubbish, do they? You don't intentionally want to feel like that way. It's just there until you get the right kind of help, until you start talking about it. So I like the perception that you have, you know, what you're saying that man up is, because it is about that conversation and getting those things out in the first place.
Exactly. And to go back to what you said earlier on, yes, I was 8 years old thinking those thoughts. And I guess for a lot of my adult life, I have still been that 8-year-old surviving boy pretending to be a man, where for me, as a man, I don't survive. Boys know how to survive and boys don't cry. Men can meet life and respond and can have emotions. Men cry. Men laugh. Men can meet life and create things. But as a boy, I just kept playing the same role, attracting trouble to survive, because that's what I knew to do. So I find that the men can come and end old chapters who they no longer need to be, and really start living a new life full of goodness and peace.
Definitely. Brilliant. Kenny, thank you so much for coming back on to share your story.
Thank you so much for inviting.
And please do keep in touch and let us know how it's going.
I'd love to. Thank you.
Brilliant.